They mocked the mountain man for loving an obese girl, until her secret map saved all their children. In a quiet mountain village surrounded by tall trees and cold winds, there lived a man whom everyone called the Mountain Man. Very few people remembered his real name, and fewer ever tried to know him. He lived on the edge of the village, close to the forest, in a small wooden house he had built with his own hands. He spent most of his time working with wood, caring for animals, and walking through the hills. He did not talk much, not because he was rude, but because life had taught him that silence was safer than words. The villagers thought he was strange. They believed he had no ambition, no education, and no place among them. When he walked through the market, people stared. Some laughed quietly. Others shook their heads. Children were warned not to talk to him. To them, he was just an odd man who smelled of trees and earth, someone who did not belong to normal society. The mountain man noticed these things, but he did not react. Long ago, he had learned that trying to explain himself only brought more pain. So he kept his eyes low and his heart calm. The mountains never judged him. The trees never mocked him. Nature accepted him as he was, and that was enough. In the same village lived a young woman named Amina. She lived with her mother in a small, crowded house near the center of the village. Amina was gentle, intelligent, and kind, but none of that mattered to most people. They only saw her body. They whispered about her weight, laughed when she walked past, and made cruel jokes when they thought she could not hear. Amina heard everything. Every laugh, every comment, every quiet insult. She learned to smile even when her heart felt heavy. She helped her mother at home, worked hard, and treated everyone with respect, even those who hurt her. Inside, she carried pain, but she also carried strength. She loved books and old stories. Whenever she could, she read about the village history and listened to elders talk about the past. Her grandfather had once been a respected man, known for his deep knowledge of the mountains. When he passed away, many of his stories and notes were forgotten, but Amina never forgot them. People in the village believed Amina would never find love. They spoke about her future as if it was already decided. Who would choose her, they said. She should be grateful for whatever life gives her. These words followed her everywhere, like shadows she could not escape. One evening, while returning from the market, Amina slipped on a muddy path near the forest. Her basket fell, and vegetables rolled onto the ground. Before she could bend down, someone quietly helped her gather them. It was the mountain man. He did not say much. He simply handed her the basket and nodded. Amina thanked him, surprised by his kindness. Most people avoided her, but this man showed no sign of judgment. That small moment stayed in her mind longer than she expected. Over the next few weeks, they crossed paths again and again, sometimes near the forest, sometimes on the narrow mountain paths. Slowly, short greetings turned into longer conversations. The mountain man spoke little, but when he did, his words were thoughtful. He listened carefully when Amina talked, something very few people ever did. Amina felt safe around him. There was no pressure to impress, no fear of being laughed at. He looked at her as if she was a human being, not a problem to be fixed. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen. The mountain man admired Amina's mind. She spoke about history, about the mountains, about things most villagers ignored. She had a quiet confidence that grew stronger the more he listened. He realized that behind her gentle voice was a deep understanding of the land they lived on. Soon, villagers began to notice them together. At first, it was just curious looks. Then came whispers. Then came open mockery. People laughed at the mountain man for being with her. They laughed at Amina for believing she deserved love. She must have tricked him, some said. No one like him could want her, others laughed. Even children repeated what they heard at home, not knowing the harm their words caused. Amina felt the pain deeply. Old fears returned. She wondered if she should stop meeting him, if she was making his life harder. One day, she tried to push him away, saying he deserved better. The mountain man listened quietly. Then he spoke words that stayed with her forever. He told her he chose her because of who she was, not what others saw. He said he was tired of living by the village's rules and tired of pretending that people's opinions mattered more than truth. Those words gave Amina strength. For the first time, she decided she would not let shame control her life. If people wanted to mock her, they would do it anyway. She would not hide anymore. Still, the village cruelty did not stop. Shopkeepers whispered when they entered. Elders shook their heads. Friends turned away. The mountain man's isolation grew deeper, but he did not regret his choice. He had lived alone before. He could live with judgment now. What no one knew was that Amina carried a secret that had nothing to do with romance or appearance. Hidden in her room, wrapped carefully in cloth, was an old map drawn by her grandfather. It was not a treasure map. It was something far more important. Her grandfather had once warned her that the mountains held dangers people had forgotten. He had taught her symbols, paths, and signs. One day, he told her, this knowledge may save lives. Amina never forgot those words. While the village laughed and judged, the mountains watched quietly. Seasons changed, winds grew stronger, and the land prepared for something no one expected. The mountain man and Amina, mocked and ignored, continued to walk together, unaware that their bond would soon be tested in ways that would change the village forever. And so, in a place where people believed they knew everything about each other, the truth remained hidden. The outsiders, the ones judged and pushed aside, were carrying something the village would one day desperately need. The days passed quietly in the village, but Amina's mind was never quiet. While people laughed and mocked her, she carried with her the secret of the old map her grandfather had left behind. The map was fragile, the paper yellowed with age, and the lines drawn in fading ink. Most villagers would have thrown it away as nonsense, but Amina treated it like treasure. She studied it carefully every day, tracing the lines with her fingers, trying to understand the signs and symbols her grandfather had drawn. There were rivers that twisted like snakes, forests that seemed endless, cliffs and hidden caves, and mysterious marks she did not fully understand. The more she looked, the more she realized her grandfather had not drawn the map for adventure or profit. It was a guide to safety, knowledge of the mountains that could save lives. The mountain man noticed her concentration one afternoon when he visited her home. He had grown to trust Amina's mind, and her quiet intelligence fascinated him. She showed him the map carefully, unfolding it on the wooden table, her fingers trembling slightly. "See these lines," she said softly. "They are paths that people never take. These caves and shelters, they were used long ago when travelers got lost. My grandfather marked them so no one would die." The mountain man leaned closer, studying the map with interest. Unlike the villagers, he understood the mountains. He could read paths, know where the ground was soft or dangerous, and sense when a rockslide might happen. Together, they traced the lines, comparing the map with the real world. Slowly, they began to realize that Amina's grandfather had left instructions for survival, not treasure. At first, Amina doubted herself. The map was old, the symbols confusing, and the mountains unpredictable. She remembered the villagers' mocking faces and whispered to herself, "What if I'm wrong? What if this is nothing?" But the mountain man's quiet confidence encouraged her. "We will check it together," he said. "We know the mountains better than anyone here. We can learn it carefully, step by step." And so, they began exploring. They started with short walks along small paths, comparing what they saw with what the map showed. At first, it was simple things, identifying streams that were safe to cross, finding rocks that marked hidden paths, spotting signs of changing weather. Amina's eyes sparkled with curiosity. For the first time, her knowledge felt powerful. She was no longer just the girl people laughed at. She had something the mountain man did not, and together they made a strong team. Soon, they ventured further. They found caves hidden behind thick trees and hills, just as the map predicted. Some caves were dry and safe, others damp and dangerous. Amina learned to notice subtle signs her grandfather had written about: patterns in the grass, the smell of wet earth, unusual bird sounds. The mountain man taught her how to climb rocks safely, how to read the sky for storms, and how to move quietly so animals wouldn't be startled. Day by day, their bond grew stronger, built on trust and shared purpose. Meanwhile, the villagers continued to mock them. Some even followed them from a distance, curious but unwilling to participate. "Why do they waste their time with each other?" they whispered. "She is too big for him. He is too strange for her." "They are a joke." The mountain man ignored these words, and Amina learned to ignore them too. The mountains did not judge. Nature rewarded preparation, not appearances. As the weeks went by, they began to notice something troubling. The weather was changing faster than usual. Winds became stronger, clouds darker, and the rivers began to swell after little rain. They realized that the mountains were restless and danger was approaching. One day, while examining the map, Amina noticed a mark she had not paid much attention to before. It was a symbol her grandfather had circled, a warning of sudden floods and landslides in this area. She looked at the mountain man. "We need to be careful," she said. "The map says this could happen when the sky changes like this." The mountain man nodded gravely. "We must know all the safe paths. If people go hiking or children play near the rivers, this knowledge could save them." They decided to check the marked areas. Their first journey led them to a hidden valley. The valley was surrounded by cliffs, and a small stream ran through it. Amina noticed patterns her grandfather had drawn: a certain type of tree near safe rocks, marks on the stones showing high water levels. They marked the paths with small wooden signs that only they could understand. They checked caves, hills, and forests, making mental notes of where danger might strike. Every day, their work became more urgent. They watched clouds gather and rivers rise. The mountain man became more protective of Amina, not because she was weak, but because he knew the villagers would panic when the storm came. They practiced emergency routes, climbing quickly to higher ground, finding safe spots for animals, and memorizing hidden shelters. The more they explored, the more Amina realized the map was not only her grandfather's gift, it was a responsibility. At home, Amina kept the map safe, studying it at night with a lantern. She drew smaller sketches in her notebook, adding details she discovered herself. She wrote notes about the weather, animals, and rocks. Every detail mattered. "If someone gets lost here, these notes could save them," she whispered to herself. The mountain man often joined her, helping with measurements and planning. They laughed sometimes, talking quietly about small joys in the mountains: the smell of pine, the songs of birds, the quiet of snowfall. In those moments, the world of mockery and cruelty felt far away. The villagers continued to gossip, but they had no idea how serious the mountain man and Amina were. People still laughed when they saw them walking together. "What is she doing with him now?" someone asked. "She should stay home. He should stay alone." But Amina ignored the voices. Every step she took on the mountains reminded her of her grandfather's wisdom. She knew that knowledge and courage mattered more than popularity or beauty. One afternoon, a group of children came too close to the stream while playing. Amina saw it and immediately remembered the symbol on the map warning of sudden floods. She ran to the stream with the mountain man, shouting to the children to move to higher ground. Some of the children laughed, thinking it was a game, but before they could respond, the water rose quickly, reaching the edge of the rocks. They moved just in time. Amina's heart pounded. She realized then how important the map was. It was not just lines on paper, it was life itself. After that incident, the mountain man said, "We must be ready for more. The mountains will not wait for anyone to take them seriously." Amina agreed. She decided to spend more time learning, memorizing, and testing the map. She also started teaching the mountain man some of the old stories her grandfather had told her about hidden springs, safe passages, and natural signs of danger. They both learned from each other, combining knowledge and experience into a unique skill set. In those days, their friendship deepened. People outside the mountains could not understand it, and many still mocked them. But the mountain man and Amina had learned that their bond was stronger than gossip. They found joy in quiet mornings walking through the forest, in evenings spent studying the map by firelight, and in the small victories of discovering new safe paths. Slowly, they began noticing signs that the mountains were becoming even more unpredictable. The snow on higher peaks melted earlier than usual, streams ran faster, and the wind shifted suddenly without warning. They realized the map might soon be needed for more than just practice. It was a quiet fear that grew stronger each day. One night while looking at the map under the dim lantern light, Amina whispered, "What if one day children get lost here? What if people ignore our warnings?" The mountain man put a hand on her shoulder. "Then we will be ready. You have the knowledge and I know the mountains. We can save them when the time comes." They both understood that their work was not just about proving the villagers wrong or gaining respect. It was about life and death. It was about responsibility and courage. While people laughed and judged, the two outsiders were preparing for a moment when knowledge and love would matter more than appearances. Days turned into weeks. Every walk, every climb, every observation added to their understanding. They started thinking about emergencies, about where to take someone trapped by a landslide, or how to find lost children in dense forests. They even tested small shelters and marked trees with discreet signs. The map was no longer just Amina's inheritance. It had become a blueprint for survival, one they would rely on when the mountains finally showed their true power. Through all this, the villagers remained blind to the truth. They continued to gossip and mock, unaware that the people they ridiculed were quietly mastering knowledge that could save lives. The mountain man and Amina did not seek praise. They did not try to convince others. They focused on what mattered: preparation, safety, and trust in each other. The bond between them grew stronger with every discovery. Amina's confidence increased, and she no longer let the weight of ridicule crush her spirit. She realized that her value was not in how others saw her, but in what she could do, in what she had learned, and in the courage to act when it mattered most. The mountain man, who had always lived alone, found in her not only a friend but a partner who understood the mountains, respected knowledge, and shared his silent strength. And so, the quiet days continued. The map sat safely in Amina's home, the mountains watched silently, and the pair prepared for a future no one else could see. They knew something was coming, a test of their courage, knowledge, and the bond they had built together. One day, the villagers would see the truth, but until then, Amina and the mountain man kept learning, exploring, and trusting each other, ready for the moment when the map would become more than paper and ink, ready for the moment it would live the village had always believed the mountains were just scenery, a backdrop to their daily lives. They rarely thought about the dangers that hid among the trees, cliffs, and streams. But the mountain man and Amina had spent weeks studying the land, following the map, and preparing for emergencies. What they did not expect was that their preparation would soon be tested in the most urgent way possible. It was a bright morning when the village school organized a trip to the hills. Excited children, laughing and shouting, followed their teachers along familiar trails. The parents waved from the village square, feeling safe because they had walked these paths for generations. No one worried about the mountains. No one thought about floods, hidden cliffs, or landslides. Amina had felt a quiet unease that morning. She looked at the sky and noticed clouds forming in unusual patterns. She glanced at the map, comparing the old symbols with the trails the children were taking. Her heart sank. "Mountain man," she said quietly, "I think we should follow them just to make sure they are safe." The mountain man agreed without hesitation. They prepared their small pack with water, ropes, and lanterns. Quietly, they followed the children at a distance, careful not to alarm anyone. The children laughed and played, unaware of the hidden dangers that lurked around the mountains. At first, everything seemed normal. The children climbed small hills, ran through meadows, and splashed in shallow streams. The teachers were attentive, though unprepared for real danger. The mountain man and Amina watched from behind trees and rocks, scanning the paths ahead. Then, slowly, the weather began to change. The clouds grew darker, moving quickly across the sky. The wind picked up, making the trees sway violently. Birds that had been singing fell silent, and the first drops of rain began to fall. Amina's eyes widened as she compared the scene to the map. "It's happening," she whispered. "The signs are here. We have to move fast." The mountain man nodded. "We need to get them to higher ground, and quickly." They hurried through the forest, trying to stay ahead of the children. At first, the rain was light, but within minutes it turned into a downpour. Streams swelled, paths became slippery, and small rocks began to tumble from the cliffs above. The children, who had been laughing and playing, suddenly realized that the mountains were dangerous. Some froze in fear. Others started running blindly, which made the situation even more dangerous. Amina shouted instructions to the children, using her calm voice to guide them. "Follow the path. Don't step on loose rocks. Stay together." The mountain man moved ahead, helping those who slipped and pointing out safe spots. They led the children toward the hidden paths and shelters marked on the map, places that no one else in the village even knew existed. The rain turned into a torrent. Streams turned into rushing rivers. A small landslide blocked part of the main path. Panic spread among the children, and even the teachers were unsure of what to do. But Amina and the mountain man remained focused. They guided each child, one by one, through the safest routes. They checked behind every tree, every rock, making sure no one was left behind. At one point, a young boy slipped and fell into the water. The mountain man jumped immediately, catching him by the arm and pulling him to safety. The boy's face was pale, his teeth chattering, but he was unharmed. Amina held his hand and whispered, "It's okay, you are safe now, just stay with us." The boy clung to her, understanding for the first time that someone truly cared about him. Meanwhile, the rain showed no sign of stopping. The streams they had crossed safely in the morning were now raging rivers. Amina and the mountain man led the children across fallen logs, through shallow caves, and along narrow ridges. Every step was dangerous, but the map guided them. Every symbol, every mark that had seemed meaningless before, now had a life-saving purpose. One by one, they reached the first shelter, a small cave hidden behind a thick cluster of trees. The children huddled together, shivering and scared, while the mountain man built a small fire to warm them. Amina checked each child, making sure no one was injured. She looked at the rain pouring outside and felt a quiet sense of relief. For now, they were safe. But the mountains were still alive with danger. The teachers, who had doubted her at first, now looked at Amina with awe. They had ignored her warnings in the past, but now they realized the truth. Her knowledge, her careful study of the map, and her courage had saved the children. Some of them whispered apologies, others just stared in disbelief. After a brief rest, they had to move again. The map showed a longer, safer path that would lead them back to the village, but it was more difficult. Rocks were slippery, mud clung to their shoes, and the wind pushed against them. The mountain man led the way, carrying supplies and supporting those who were tired or scared. Amina stayed close to the children, keeping them calm and focused. Along the way, they encountered a section of the path that had been blocked by fallen trees and rocks. The mountain man carefully cleared a small path, making it wide enough for the children to pass. He worked quickly, knowing that every minute counted. Amina encouraged the children to step carefully and trust the path they were taking. Her calmness gave them courage. At one point, The youngest girl began to cry, frightened by the dark clouds and the loud rumble of thunder. Amina knelt beside her, holding her hands and speaking softly. "It's okay, we are here. We will get you home safe. Trust us." The girl nodded, still trembling, but she followed Amina's instructions. Hours passed, and slowly they made their way through the dangerous parts of the mountains. Every time a child stumbled, the mountain man was there. Every time someone became afraid, Amina guided them. They worked as a team, moving with care and precision. The map had predicted these dangers, and their preparation was paying off. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the higher ground that the map had marked as safe. From there, they could see the village below, surrounded by rain and mist. The children cheered quietly, relieved to see the familiar rooftops. The mountain man and Amina smiled, though exhaustion weighed heavily on them. They had saved every child, and that was all that mattered. When they returned to the village, the villagers were waiting anxiously. Parents ran to their children, tears streaming down their faces. The ones who had mocked Amina and the mountain man stood in silence, unable to speak. The truth of the mountains, of the dangers they had ignored, had been revealed in the most dramatic way possible. Amina handed over her map to the elders, showing them the paths, the shelters, and the signs they should watch for. She explained how the floods had begun, how the streams had risen, and how the hidden paths had saved lives. The mountain man supported her, speaking quietly but firmly, telling them that the mountains could be dangerous if ignored. The villagers, who had ridiculed them for so long, now understood the value of knowledge and preparation. The children were safe, thanks to the courage and wisdom of two people they had once dismissed. Parents embraced Amina and the mountain man, overwhelmed with gratitude and awe. The laughter that had once mocked them had been replaced with respect, though it came slowly and awkwardly at first. That night, the village gathered in the square. Fires burned brightly, and people spoke in hushed tones about what had happened. The mountain man and Amina sat quietly, letting the villagers celebrate the children's safety. They did not seek praise. They knew that their work was not over. The mountains would continue to be unpredictable, and knowledge would always be more important than appearances. As they watched the villagers from the edge of the crowd, Amina whispered to the mountain man, "Do you think they will ever understand?" He smiled faintly, looking at the map she still carried in her hands. "Maybe," he said, "but it doesn't matter. We did what we had to do. That is enough." The children, tired but safe, ran to their parents. They hugged Amina and the mountain man, thanking them in their simple, honest way. Their gratitude filled the air, louder and more meaningful than any words the villagers could say. For the first time, Amina felt completely at peace. The map, the mountains, and the courage she had carried for so long had all come together to protect life. And in that moment, something changed. The mountain man, once mocked for living differently, was now a hero. Amina, once judged for her appearance, was now a protector. The village had learned, through fear and relief, that courage and wisdom are more powerful than judgment or prejudice. The mountains stood silently around them, their dangers still present, their beauty unchanged. But the people who had once ignored them now understood, even if only a little, that knowledge, preparation, and care could save lives. And the mountain man and Amina, who had walked quietly and learned patiently, had proven that love, courage, and wisdom were stronger than mockery or doubt. That day, the children went home safely, but the story of the rescue would stay in the village forever. People would talk about it for generations, about the girl with the secret map and the quiet mountain man who had saved the children when no one else could. And Amina and the mountain man would continue their work, exploring, learning, and preparing, ready for the next challenge the mountains would bring. Because in the mountains, danger was always close, but so was hope, and together, they had shown the village that even the smallest knowledge and the quietest courage could overcome the greatest fear. After the terrifying day when the children were rescued from the mountains, the village slowly began to change. People could not ignore what had happened. The same villagers who had once mocked the mountain man and laughed at Amina now spoke in hushed tones about their courage. They watched them differently, with respect they had never shown before. Some parents approached them, tears in their eyes, to say thank you. Others simply nodded quietly, unable to find words to describe what they felt. Amina and the mountain man did not seek recognition. They had never cared for praise. Their work had been about protecting life, about using knowledge and courage to keep people safe. But they could not deny a quiet satisfaction in seeing the villagers finally understand that there was more to a person than appearances or gossip. They had shown that love, intelligence, and bravery could be far more important than looks or social status. The map, which had been tucked safely away in Amina's room for so many years, was now displayed for the village elders to see. Amina carefully explained every symbol, every line, and every note her grandfather had drawn. The elders listened closely, their eyes widening as they realized how little they had understood the mountains. They had thought the hills were simple and safe, but now they saw that hidden dangers lurked everywhere. Floods, landslides, and sudden storms could appear without warning, and only knowledge, preparation, and careful attention could save lives. The villagers began to take notice of the lessons Amina and the mountain man had taught them. They asked questions about the hidden paths, the safe shelters, and the warning signs in nature. Children listened eagerly, wanting to learn too. Even those who had once teased Amina now wanted to know more about her knowledge of the mountains. Slowly, the village culture began to shift. People realized that intelligence, courage, and preparation were more valuable than appearance or popularity. Despite the recognition, Amina remained humble. She did not want to be treated like a hero because of what had happened. She knew that it had been a combination of her knowledge and the mountain man's experience that had saved the children. She often told the villagers, "It was not just me. We learned from the mountains, from experience, and from the wisdom of my grandfather. If we work together, we can protect everyone." The mountain man, who had always been quiet and solitary, began to feel accepted for the first time in his life. He had never sought friendship or approval from the villagers, but now he felt a quiet warmth in their respect. Some children ran to him with smiles, wanting to hear his stories about the mountains. Others wanted him to guide them on small walks through the forest. He shared his knowledge carefully, teaching them how to respect nature and how to recognize danger. As the weeks passed, the village slowly began to trust the map. Teachers, parents, and elders studied it carefully. They organized small excursions, guided by Amina and the mountain man, to learn how to move safely in the mountains. Children were taught how to recognize warning signs in nature, how to find safe shelters, and how to help each other during emergencies. The knowledge that had once been hidden became a shared responsibility. The village had learned an important lesson. Mocking and ignoring someone because of appearance or social differences could blind them to life-saving knowledge. Amid all this, the relationship between Amina and the mountain man grew even stronger. Their bond had begun quietly, built on trust and mutual respect, but now it had been tested by danger and hardship. They knew each other in ways that no one else in the village could understand. Their love was not based on superficial qualities, but on understanding, patience, and shared experiences. They walked together in the mountains, explored the paths, and quietly planned for the future. Even the villagers who had once mocked them began to notice the depth of their relationship. Some whispered in surprise, others nodded in approval. They were always together, a parent said, and now we see why. They complement each other in ways we never understood. Slowly, judgment turned into respect, and ridicule gave way to admiration. The children often ran to Amina, hugging her and asking her questions about the mountains. They wanted to know how she had found the hidden paths, how she had predicted the dangers, and how the mountain man had helped her lead them safely. She answered each question patiently, explaining the importance of knowledge, courage, and preparation. The children listened carefully, realizing that bravery and intelligence could overcome fear and danger. The mountain man began to teach children about the mountains in small ways, showing them how to climb rocks safely, how to read the sky for storms, and how to follow natural signs. He used simple lessons, and the children were fascinated. They learned not only to survive, but to respect the mountains and nature around them. For the first time, the village had a sense of unity and shared purpose that had never existed before. Even the elders, who had once dismissed Amina's map as nonsense, came to trust it completely. They recorded her knowledge, making copies of the map and adding their own notes about weather patterns, streams, and paths. The knowledge became a part of the village, a shared treasure that would be passed down to future generations. What had been hidden for years now became a guide for life and survival. Amina and the mountain man also taught the villagers about teamwork and trust. They explained that survival was not just about knowledge, but also about helping each other and respecting one another. The villagers slowly began to see that the mountain man, who had always been quiet and solitary, had an extraordinary understanding of the mountains. And they began to understand that Amina, who had been mocked for her weight, had a sharp mind and courage that could save lives. Over time, the fear and ridicule that had dominated the village began to fade. The mountain man and Amina were no longer outsiders. They were respected, admired, and loved. Their story became a lesson for everyone. Appearances could be deceiving, and true courage often comes from those who are quietly preparing, learning, and acting when the time is needed most. One day, after another small excursion into the mountains with children and parents, Amina looked at the mountain man and smiled. "We did it," she said softly. "We changed the way they see things." The mountain man nodded, a faint smile on his face. "We did," he said. "But it was not just us. The mountains taught us and we only listened. Others will learn too if they continue to pay attention." The village slowly rebuilt its trust in nature and in each other. Mockery and prejudice became less common, and respect for knowledge, wisdom, and courage grew stronger. People began to notice that the mountain man and Amina had something special, a partnership that worked because it was based on trust, understanding, and shared purpose. They became role models not just for bravery, but for love and cooperation. Parents told their children the story of the rescue, emphasizing the lessons learned. "Never underestimate someone because of their appearance," they said. "Listen, learn, and respect the knowledge that others may carry." The children, who had experienced the danger firsthand, repeated these lessons in their play and in school, passing the wisdom down naturally. Amina continued to study the mountains, adding to her grandfather's map. The mountain man explored with her, always cautious, always observant. Together, they found new paths, marked hidden shelters, and prepared for any future dangers. The mountains were unpredictable, but now the village had guardians who could guide them safely. As time passed, their love also became a symbol of resilience and hope. People who had once mocked them now admired the quiet strength of their relationship. They had proven that love is not about appearances or social approval, but about respect, trust, and support. And that love, combined with knowledge and courage, could change lives in ways no one could have imagined. Years later, the village remembered that day of the flood as a turning point. It was the day they learned that bravery and intelligence could save lives. It was the day they realized that judgment and mockery could hide extraordinary talent. And it was the day the mountain man and Amina showed them that love, courage, and wisdom are the most important qualities anyone can have. The map remained safe in Amina's hands, but now it was more than just her grandfather's gift. It had become a symbol of the village's survival, a reminder that preparation, knowledge, and caring for each other were more important than pride or appearances. Children grew up learning the lessons of the map, guided by the mountain man and Amina, and the mountains, once feared and underestimated, became a teacher for everyone. The mountain man and Amina continued their quiet walks, their explorations, and their lessons, knowing that the mountains would always have challenges. But they also knew that they had changed the village forever. Their courage, knowledge, and love had saved lives, inspired respect, and created a legacy that would last for generations. And so, in a village that had once judged and mocked them, the mountain man and the girl with the secret map became heroes. Not because of fame or recognition, but because they stayed true to themselves, followed their hearts, and acted with courage when it mattered most. Their story remained in the hearts of the villagers forever, a story of love, bravery, and the power of knowledge to change the world.